Hi everyone, welcome to Customer Behaviour and this time we're going to be looking at Assessment 2. Let's think about first of all the overall program for this unit. The first thing we want to do is make sure that you can develop a theoretical understanding of customer behaviour. Second, we want to be able to ensure that you can apply the principles through the development of a consumer research report based on a specific organisation. The assessment looks at the social and environmental context. It's worth 25% and due on the 21st of December. And usually I get the results back to you in about a week's time after the assessment is due. So in this assessment, we're looking at weeks 2, 3, and 4. So we're looking at culture, social class, and reference groups. That's the context in which the assessment is composed. So as I said before, it's worth 25%. It's 2,500 words plus or minus 5%. You submit through EAST. All submissions need to go through Turnitin before submission. Any submissions over with a similarity index over 15%, you really need to go and have a look and resubmit. So you can submit to Turnitin as many times as you like before the due date. So remember, it's the assessment 2 is the same as assessment 1 in terms of you to assume that you're the market research manager for your organisation and you're preparing this report for the chief marketing officer with the prospect of developing some kind of innovative marketing solution to improve the firm's performance. So you're looking at topics 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the overall goal is to understand the role of social and environmental context and use real-life organisational examples to discuss your point of view, how and why it works. The focus. So these are the specific issues covered in the report. So looking at the social and environmental context influences that are directly relevant to your case study. Okay, so the social influences, for example, are the culture, the social class, reference groups, and other environmental context factors which impact on the consumer purchase decision and brand switching behaviour. So you need to make sure that you look at market, industry, and or survey data to support your analysis where appropriate. So you use the theories in chapters 2 to 4. That's pretty much it. Let's think a little bit more about context. I will place up on Interact 2 a paper that I wrote many years ago when I was doing my PhD on the overall topic of context. So remember that marketing behavior is not separate from its context. It's rather embedded within the context in which it takes place. And there are a number of elements of context, such as the external environment, such as the situation that you find yourself in. There's the organizational context, there's the group context, and then there's the individual context. All of these elements of context influence the decision-making process. So just think about the analogy of the type of lens used on an SLR camera. So you might have a wide-angle lens, and that captures the broad shape of, say, a flower garden, much like quantitative research, doing survey research. On the other hand, when you use a zoom lens with a macro feature, you can capture the rich texture and colour of a single flower. And this is pretty much like qualitative research. Thus, one's view of context and its part in shaping a researcher's view of reality depends on which aspect of reality is being studied. So this is really, really important because it will influence the way that you think about the subject matter for assessment 2. Let's talk about culture. Think about the definition, that it's the sum total of learned beliefs, values, and customs that serve to direct the consumer behaviour of members of a particular society. So it's beliefs, values, and customs. And also it includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and other capabilities, and habits. So when we think about culture a little bit more, it's the distinctive way of life of a group of people, their complete design for living. If we look at the cultural profile of a society, we talk about the unique beliefs, values, and customs. We talk about one's self-identification, the core cultural themes that are shared by most of the population. And remember, different population groups, different cultures will have different core themes. And also it includes the language used. Next, we get on to social class. So we're talking about a social class as consisting of a number of people who have approximately equal positions in society, however you measure the equality of those positions. And social class talks about an exhibit status. It talks about one's rank in the social system. And status can be determined by factors such as power, income, occupation, amongst others. It could be a religious group, etc. Let's talk about the nature of social class. Social classes are multidimensional. They can be based on components such as money, occupation, housing, and reputation. They're hierarchical. They can be vertical from low to high status. They can also be horizontal. For example, you could be a member of a social class as well, such as an occupational group. They tend to restrict behaviour. People tend to associate mostly with others within the same social class. Some social classes are homogeneous. This allows a marketeer to effectively segment a market. And one of the great things about marketing is this tool of segmentation. They are dynamic and they can be opened or closed. So generally, it's difficult to improve one's class status once you're in a particular social class. Then we talk about reference groups. A reference group is a person or a group, real or fictitious, which influences the attitudes, behaviour and standards and values of other people. So it influences your membership aspiration or dissociation, brand meaning, role, experiences, interests, opinions, standards, values, attitudes and behaviours. So your family's a reference group. Your occupational group can be a reference group. Your friends can be reference groups. And so it's what I call an expanding circle of influence. So you start off with you as the individual, you have your family, and the level of influence gradually radiates out. So you have your family, your friends, your social class, your selected subcultures, which I'll talk about in a minute, your own culture, and then other cultures which you may interact with as well. So when you talk about consumer-related reference groups, when you talk about friendship groups, they're after your immediate family. They're the most likely group to influence your purchase decisions. You can have virtual groups or communities where you share information, fellowship. You can have shopping groups, whether you shop together socially, in-home shopping parties. You can have work groups, a major influence because of the large amount of time you spend together. You can have consumer action groups, which are independent bodies formed to help consumers make informed decisions, or you can have brand communities as well. Just getting back to assessment 2, I showed you in assessment in this the PowerPoint slides for assessment 1. There's a whole series of data sources which you can have a look at. One of the prime ones I've given you are the databases on either politics, banking, or mobile phones. I suggest that you pretty early start looking at Screencast-O-Matic for your video recording session that you need to do an assessment for. Many of you have looked at IBIS World. You can look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics. If you're looking at banking, there's APRA, and on the political side, there's Vote Compass 2013 and 2016. In terms of your presentation, very straightforward. You need to have a title page, table of contents, introduction, then a section on the social factors, the environmental factors, and also recommendations to improve your firm's marketing strategies based on what you've learned through this task. Now, the requirements are a high standard of report presentation. So you need an ideal assignment. Is your opinion supported by evidence from respected or reliable sources? So make sure you use Times Roman font and single spacing. Make sure you put your assessment through Turnitin. Use the APA 6th edition referencing style. Please don't use general web-based references. So you'll get marked down heavily if I see any of these general reference sites. The marking criteria. There are 4 criteria. The first one relates to your ability to communicate. So you can read through the assessment criteria. For example, if you want to get a high distinction with communication, no grammatical errors, structures clear, logical, consistent. Then the second assessment, or that first assessment item is worth 20%. Your theoretical analysis skills are worth 30%. So this is understanding the theories and the environmental context coming out of chapters 2 to 4, and also the academic references that you read as well. Then the third assessment skill is the application skill. So this is being able to apply it to your case study, and this is worth 40%. And finally, there's a 10% given for referencing skills. So that pretty much covers your assessment 2. Good luck, and we'll talk during our online session. Thanks again.